Good afternoon, Westwood. Welcome, the Wolverine Report podcast. Evan is out this week. Charlotte, as always, behind camera. Folks, today we have an absolute special guest, a Westwood legend. When you look at today's Westwood teams winning legacies, state championships, it all started from one decade, one team, and quite frankly, one person who cemented a winning culture, not just on the court, but also off the court, pioneering the fight for Title IX gender equity rights. And the game of basketball on and off the court would not be the same if it wasn't for our guest today. We are super excited to have Kathy Delaney-Smith on the podcast. Kathy, how are you? And thank you so much for joining us.
I am great, and Westwood is the love of my life. It's the beginning of something I never, ever dreamed of or thought would happen. I cannot tell you that my 11 years here at Westwood were amongst the best in my life. It was very hard for me to actually leave Westwood and go to Harvard. That was a very hard decision. I just loved this town, and all those parents out there that helped me coach all those 10 or 11 years, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Absolutely. And what a run it's been. You know, if anyone's ever been into the Westwood High School gym, it's kind of the first thing you'll notice is those banners. You'll notice the win streak. You'll notice the TVL consecutive win streak. Kathy, I believe you were part of 8 of them. And then after you had gone to Harvard, there was an additional that extended all the way to 19 years, folks. 19 years of consecutive wins in the Tri-Valley League, which is absolutely remarkable. It's a league, that is very competitive, a league that is always trying to beat Westwood, quite frankly. And that was, I'm sure, the what the teams were up against back then, always trying to beat you guys. It's their Super Bowl. But I want to get into Kathy Delaney-Smith, the player. Grew up in Newton. Understand you went to Sacred Heart High School, nice parochial school in Newton, and you played for a legend, Pat Delaney, your mom. How special was she as a coach, and how awesome was it to be able to play high school basketball for your mom?
Yeah, I was looking in the rear view mirror. I will tell you, she was a pioneer and she was remarkable. Yeah. I am ashamed to say that I was unaware of that while I was going through it. Yeah. And it was so funny because I'm writing a book, and in the book I talk a lot about my mother and how at Sacred Heart we got a lot of press because of my mother's hard work. She spent hours on the phone with newspapers and media trying to get them to throw a picture in the paper. And so, and no one was doing that for girls back in the 60s. Yeah. So again, a remarkable woman. She knows I loved her, but I wish I was more aware of how remarkable she was, so I could have told her.
For sure. I had a father as a coach, and I didn't appreciate it till it was later. The sacrifice, a lot of things you learn. Small things, too, that you're treated differently. Yeah. You're not treated as the coach's kid. And it's a good life lesson that, you got to go out and earn it. You got to go out and earn playing time. And, it's always a unique experience, and that's awesome. I know she was also, a huge influence in your hero, too. I've heard you mention in interviews. Rumor has it, she coached the first 1,000-point scorer during her time at Sacred Heart.
Yeah, but who kept records, Morgan? Yeah, right.
Well, it's 1,000 points. How special was that accomplishment, but more so to have that accomplishment with her by your side as your coach?
Yeah, it was great. The joke is, though, I'm going to tell you the ongoing joke is, pass Kathy the ball or I will bench you. So that's how I scored 1,000 points. But truly, our gym was packed that day, and it was a small little venue. And my dad, who was not able to come to any of my basketball games, was in the gym that day. I did not know I was going to score 1,000 points. Yeah. And I was like, what is he doing here? So it was incredibly special on many levels.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then after your high school career at Sacred Heart, you went to Bridgewater State. You studied to become a teacher. You also did synchronized swimming. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wanted to do basketball because I thought I was pretty good at that point, with all my trophies and everything. But it was there was no basketball team. It was a basketball club. And it was 5-player basketball, not 6-player. So I had only played 6-player, and it's a very different game. And so I think I played in one game, and it was everyone plays 4 minutes, and they didn't care whether you won or lost. And I'm a very competitive person. So I really want to play to win. I don't care if it's bowling or badminton or basketball. I want to win. So it was the wrong environment for me. So I left the club. And so I was a very good swimmer. So I marched down to the swimming pool. I'm going to be a swimmer. I want to swim competitively. They didn't have anything for women. They had only synchronized swimming. And the woman in charge of the program saw me. I was very little. I weighed about 120 pounds. And there were men on the synchronized swimming team, and they needed smaller women to do the lifts and all the things. And so she chased me out of the gym and said, "Oh, try it. And I'm like, "No way." And then I tried it and loved it. So I did it for 4 years. And yes, everyone does make fun of me. Yes.
Well, I hear, swimming being a passion of yours, you also were part of the coaching the swim team at Westwood. But that opportunity did open the door for the interview at Westwood. And the interview at Westwood was specifically originally for swimming, but it kind of turned a direction. Tell us a little bit about that and how that unfolded.
Well, first of all, the superintendent at the time was a man named John Tobin, and his son, John Tobin, went to Bridgewater, and this is the first time I've said this publicly, had a mad crush on his son. So just that, I thought I would see him more if I took the Westwood job. So I was looking at teaching jobs that had swimming programs. I didn't think of myself in basketball realm at all, and I just wanted to start and create a swimming program. Westwood had a brand new pool, and so I was very excited about that. And in the middle of the interview, the superintendent said, "Well, we have a girls basketball team, but they're not very good." And his daughter Barbara Tobin played, and he said, "Can you coach the basketball team and win?" And without even thinking, I said yes, and so I got the job.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we were 0-13 in my first year with his daughter, Barbara Tobin.
So you have a philosophy as if, and my understanding is go out there. It's to bring the highest level of confidence to anything you do in life and to take things on. And I might have it, a portion of it, but as if, the Tobin's asking you if you want to become the basketball coach. You say, absolutely. And I'm going to be as if I'm the best coach possible. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to be that winner. Did you use that mentality when you took on kind of that opportunity and with so many unknowns and kind of some risk involved in that?
Yeah. Everyone asked me where I got that. So I stole the phrase active as if from someone. Can't remember who. But I was actually taught to do that by my parents.
Awesome.
I did not realize I was acting as if when I was in that interview. I did the same thing at Harvard. I've done this my whole life without giving it a name. And then I got into sports psychology and someone named John Kabat-Zinn. And I realized what a strong principle act as if is. It's you act as if you already have the qualities that you want to have. And when you do that, you acquire them way more quickly than if you didn't act as if. It's an amazing thing.
Absolutely. I mean, that alone just eliminates negative thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's just creating the right thoughts and then the right behaviors.
Yes.
And turn into action, which ultimately action's probably one of the most important behaviors behind that.
Right.
You mentioned first couple seasons were a little rocky. 0-13 your first year, 8-7 your second year.
Right.
1973 was a little different.
Yeah.
21-0.
Oh, I was?
21-0.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And that was the start of the streak.
Yeah.
I want to kind of focus in on those the two first seasons that were a little bumpy. Did you see in advance that even though those seasons, the teams are coming together, you're figuring it all out, that there was something special in the future coming down the line for Westwood girls basketball and the future teams?
I'm going to confess to you, I have no memory of the first year. I lost my dad suddenly and unexpectedly the fall of my first year at Westwood. And I just don't remember losing. I don't remember what I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we could probably ask Nancy McDermott and some of the players that played for me then how bad I was. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And so I do remember 8 and 7, and then thinking there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I had gotten through the grieving of my dad, so I probably was functioning a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yes, I thought we had the greatest girls, the greatest athletes, and so I felt I had to learn. So I went to every clinic you could go to. I bought every book known to the basketball world and just read. I would read a drill and I would go, that's good. And I would run in the gym and pretend I knew what I was doing, act as if.
Yep.
And they drank my punch. You know, all my athletes, they did not know. I did not know what I was doing, which is a good thing.
But you had good fundamentals right from the beginning. You
Yeah.
had the mindset of, we need to be in shape.
Yes.
We need to be, and you pushed these girls very far with being in shape, and you know, your practices were very up. They were hard, and some to the point where a lot of these girls were intimidated by you. Like Jackie McMullen didn't come out till her junior year.
Right.
I think some other girls were intimidated because they didn't know what to expect and they were scared.
Yeah.
And then when they realized and they met you, they understood this is how you create winning basketball, and everyone becomes beher from this. You changed the game. And I got a quote from my high school. Well, I was able to get a quote from Nancy Fabiano, special player for you. Her niece was my high school girlfriend, Tina. So shout out, Tina. Thank you for helping grab the quote. But she talks about the impact you had on her as well as the game. She says, although I didn't realize it at the time back in the mid-'70s, KDS was way ahead of her time, focusing on conditioning, the fast break, and breaking down barriers between girls and boys sports, which we'll get into. Her innovative approach not only emphasized athletic development, but also promoted inclusivity and equality in the athletic community. Her forward-thinking mentality encouraged young athletes to push to their limits, fostering a culture where skill and teamwork transcended gender. KDS set a precedent for future generations, paving the way for the growth of women's sports and inspiring countless individuals to pursue their athletic passions. That quote sticks out to me because not only did you change the game, you changed these girls' lives. How cool is that when you hear back 40, 50 years later, still an impact on your players' lives?
Yeah. That's profound.
Yeah.
And it's going to make me cry, actually. That's a phenomenal quote. So thank you, Nancy and Tina, for getting it. Yeah. But I didn't. It's a funny thing. I now understand the power coaches have over their players. Mm-hmm. It's a very intense environment. And so just instinctually, my leadership is relational.
Yep.
From day one, I cared more about my players than I did about winning. And believe me, I love to win.
Yes.
I hate to lose. But it never was more important than the girls and the women that I work with. And I'm truly a relational coach. And I was highly criticized for that style of leadership. But until Brene Brown came out and Glennon Doyle and all these people who are, writing books about relational leadership, and this place for vulnerability, and there's a place for empathy. But I just instinctually had it based on how I was raised by my parents. So I knew I wore a lot of hats, but I was shocked by that. I was not prepared for that. The conversations I would have with various girls I coached were shocking, and I didn't always have the right answer or the right direction for them, but they always knew I cared.
Yeah.
And so I was always asked throughout my career, well, how did you become a leader? When did you know? And I'm like, I didn't even embrace being a leader, or it didn't own being a leader until much later in my life. And so I went back to that first class I had at Westwood with Carol Mather, the freshman that came in when I came in, and I said, why are you so attached to what I did? Why are we still great friends now? Why do we go out to dinner now? And why did you drink my punch when I really didn't even know what kind of punch I was serving you? Yeah. And they said two things. They said, because we always knew you cared and you had an enormous level of confidence. that would be act as if, because I didn't have an enormous level of confidence, actually.
Well, you're also, we talked a little bit earlier, and we talked about how similar sports and life are. A lot of great examples in seasons, careers, practice. They're all over the place. And I think a lot of these players, when they say quotes like that, it's because a number of different things. The style you coach, you were very authentic. You were tough on them, but you were fair, and you loved them, and you obviously have clear relationships with them now. But you also put them in some of the biggest games of their career under the brightest lights.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed as an athlete, I'm addicted to that. I want to be under the bright lights. I want to close the big sale. I want to provide an impact, a positive impact to others. And that a lot of that comes from basketball, from what you did over those years. And a lot of those players, clearly have taken that, moving forward. One of your alumni at Harvard, Maura Healey, great leader. And she learned, I'm sure, a lot under you coaching, you coaching her at Harvard. But it's a really unique perspective seeing that from the players. And obviously winning always helps. Winning's a great story.
Winning cures all. So I look at coaches who win Coach of the Year awards, the rich get richer,
Yes.
Gino RM is like, if I'm on TV as much as you, I can win a lot too.
Yeah.
He's done wonderful things. I don't mean to say that, but you have to admire someone who can do something in a 500 year
Yes.
or in a losing
Yes.
season, someone that can turn it around. I think that's real coaching. And
Absolutely.
I think that's where the awards should go.
That's a longer legacy than any wins will be, is the players you turned into great leaders who impacted other people's lives. And because of that, they impacted other people's lives.
That's right.
Back to the 70s, 73 game win streak. And I understand when you broke the national record for consecutive wins, your players knew, but you weren't really aware of it.
No.
The cameraman came up to you and said, "Coach, congratulations, you broke the national record for consecutive wins." Is that true?
Yeah, no, I don't, I'm not a numbers person. Like, a weakness I have, I don't even know my players' numbers. So they go, I was 33, I was 32. I'm like, I have no idea what numbers. I'm not a numbers person. So no, and I never, ever felt it was about me.
No.
And I think that's probably what my players admired most is I don't want it to be about me. I love winning. I love trophies. I'm very proud. But it's about the players.
Yeah. And ultimately, that streak went to 96 games. At that record-breaking game, and we won't talk about that.
No, don't talk about Abington.
I won't talk about
and
Abington.
the bus ride.
The bus ride, I heard about that. But at that game, there were 3 camera crews, and the game was broadcasted on radio.
Yeah.
How unprecedented is that for girls' high school basketball game in the 70s?
Yeah, it was. I didn't know of it anywhere else. I feel that about the whole Westwood program and the uniforms we wore and so all my athletes just believed and did everything I said. Yeah. So I admire them. I'll say drink my punch because I wanted warm-ups to be a show.
Yeah.
So people don't walk in for the tip-off. They walk in to watch the warm-ups. And, I think my athletes were so disciplined and so committed to anything the program wanted. They did it. And so it was really historic back then. And the 2 guys that did, I wish I could remember their names, that did the broadcasts are like you. Yeah. You're addicted.
Yeah.
You get addicted. You have this palpable passion for sports and winning and history.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Well, it's a fun town to be in, and there's an amazing history, and I'm fascinated because I'm from my era and the era where it is today, but I'm more so fascinated. I'm catching up on the eras before because the more and more I do that, the more I see so many similarities, and I see here's one example. So girls lacrosse, I was telling you before, they've won 12 state championships in 23 years.
It's amazing.
And, the difference between Westwood and Harvard is there's no recruiting here at Westwood. It's a small, humble town, 16,000. But some of the best marketing for girls lacrosse and Westwood basketball back in the 70s is you have these girls in middle school and girls in grade school that are at these games and watching these girls, and they're their heroes, and they say, I want to be Ann Deacon, I want to be Nancy Fabiano, and I want to be Lindsay Hien. And they stay in Westwood. They don't go to a private school, and they remember that. We were talking with Mark Zarther yesterday. He's now the chief strategy officer of the Panthers, and he left St. Sebastian's to come to Westwood because he saw us winning here, and he wanted to be a part of it with his friends. So that was really unique. But I want to ask you, is there something special about the girls that played for you? Were they natural born leaders? You didn't get to hand pick them. You chose who was on the roster. You chose who played. But what made them so special? What made them so hungry to win and to also just remain focused to go 96 games in a row of not losing a game?
Yeah. So there's a culture and there's an energy and a passion that I want in my program. And so did I recruit? No. But did me and my high school players go down to Thurston Junior High School and have a pizza party with all the junior high school kids there. Yeah. And I wasn't really that important, but my athletes were to these seventh graders, and they get to sit beside them. We even did, I think, slideshows, because we didn't have video or anything, but so I think we did a slideshow. And so these little young kids, they could have their picture up on a screen in front of high school players, high school stars. So I mean, we did a lot of that relational work, and I don't know. People say, well, how did you think of that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just am a relational coach. And so, I don't think there were any camps around. So I started at camp. Nice, and there was a camp in Noah, and there was a camp. So, and then everyone came to the camps, and at camps, that's where chemistry gets created. Chemistry doesn't get created on the court. It gets created off the court, and then it shows on the court.
Absolutely. 100%. Those off-court activities, team building, and then when you see it on the court, you see players fighting for each other, standing up for each other, and really looking at the front of the jersey, not the back. There was 96-game win streak. We were just talking about that. There was some tough losses in the playoffs. And specifically 78 lost by a point to Drury. God. But I'm going to precurse that for the following year, which was a huge win in overtime over Ipswich and Deacon, 30 points. Did that loss the year before sit with you for a while? And was it part of kind of, really pushing forward on that state championship win in 79?
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember how much I talked about that loss to motivate us to win. Yeah. I think the athletes would probably remember better than I do. Sure. But I did use that particular strategy throughout my career. So I'm sure it catapulted us. Yeah. And I think I knew Kiki. Kiki Papagiotis was the coach of Ipswich at the time, and we had a relationship. So we may have bantered
I bet.
Back and forth.
A little coach smack talk.
Yeah, a little bit. I think so.
I got a story I want to confirm by you. So my father, old school guy, reads the paper every day. He could give me a whole synopsis on the Globe, the Herald, and even the New York Times. I don't even know how he has enough time. And it also links to Jackie McMullen, and I know you can confirm this story or not. But it was right around 2003, 2004. Patriots won their third Super Bowl in 4 years. And Bob Ryan is at a preseason game, walks by Jackie and says, Jackie, keep an eye out tomorrow's article. You might find it interesting. So article comes out, and Bob Ryan, covering the Patriots' third Super Bowl in 4 years, writes an article, what is a dynasty? And he says, Montreal Canadiens, no, unequivocally, no question, a dynasty. He said, New York Yankees, 24 championships, unequivocally a dynasty. And then he said Westwood Girls Basketball.
He did?
Yes. Talks about the streak. We'll have to confirm with Jackie. But my dad, when he reads the paper, he's got a crazy, amazing memory, and he always rips the like articles he likes out. But he had been telling me about that since I was a kid. I've confirmed it with a couple other sources, but he had Westwood Girls Basketball in his article describing what is a dynasty. and included it with those professional sports teams.
I am honored. I love Bob Ryan anyway.
Yeah.
I love his writing.
So we'll get a confirmation on that.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can find the article. But I thought that was an amazing story. And I have a question about Jackie, but before I get into that, I want to talk about the fight you had off the court. And you were a pioneer for Title IX rights. It was a different time in the 70s, and you've mentioned that girls' teams were treated like second-class citizens. They weren't getting the same opportunities that the boys had. Practice hours, practicing at crazy hours, pay disparity. I even remember hearing Jackie talk about the uniforms. The team would be wearing field hockey uniforms. You were doing this all while employed. You were fighting this all while employed as the basketball coach. You filed 4 lawsuits, Title IX lawsuits, fighting for this, which all of them settled out where you got exactly what you were fighting for.
Almost everything.
How fearful were you for your job at the time? And were there ramifications outside of, you were able to keep your job, but was there ways that, they were showing you their unhappiness of you doing this?
That was so politely worded, Morgan. It's funny. I guess I'm a clueless person because if I see a wrong that needs to be righted,
yes,
I don't care the consequence for myself. I'm a very present person. I don't worry about next week.
Yep.
So I just remember people said, don't do it. You'll never get another job. You'll never get a college job. That didn't matter to me. It was so wrong the way my basketball team was being treated that I was just going to do it regardless.
Yeah.
Was there a consequence? I would say if I would compare my teaching schedule with Liz Rice or Paul Tuselli or some of the other physical education teachers at Westwood, I may have gotten the worst class schedule for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something you were willing to take because you made it a huge positive influence on your players fighting for that.
Yeah.
And I hear the stories of more towards the middle and later of the 70s, girls had the tear-off warm-up uniforms. They looked like the Boston Celtics coming out to a packed gym, and nobody had a packed gym at Westwood. Nobody, and the girls were packing it.
Yeah.
And it was what an amazing fight you had. And when I look at your fight, I really do see similarities to Jackie McMullen. You both are forever linked. She's linked to you. You're linked to her.
Yes.
And she had a similar fight on her end. She was working in a male-dominated profession.
Yes.
And they weren't nice to her.
Mm-mm.
Reggie White said, you don't belong in the locker room. Women don't belong in the locker room to cover sports. She said, I don't care. I'm going in. I'm going to do my job. Do you see some similarities in the fight that she had? And was there do you think there's any leadership she took with the fight you put on and had for Title IX rights into her professional life?
I hope there's a correlation there, but Jackie does tell the story that I was maybe one of the first people in her life to tell her she could do anything she wanted.
Love that.
So that must have helped her a little bit in the fight. But Jackie is Jackie. There's do not mess with Jackie. She's brilliant. Yeah. She's motivated. She's resilient. She's a very special person.
Yep. Yeah, just like yourself, very proud to be from Westwood because of amazing ladies like yourself. And I want to give a shout out before I go into Harvard. I want to give a shout out to some of your players that certainly stuck out over the year. There was a lot of them, and there was a lot of great ones. You sent 11 players to the Division I level, and it looks like UNH stole a few from you. They were very competitive. But I want to give a shout out Nancy Fabiano, first 1,000-point scorer in Westwood girls basketball history. Madeline McCoy, unbelievable athlete, played at Providence. Jackie McMullen, she played later in her career, junior and senior year, ended up playing at UNH. Terrific leader. I know you said she was a raw player, but just a player that would go out there and win and do anything for the team. Ann Deacon, what an amazing athlete. Went on to, she was the leading scorer before Lindsay Hallian broke it. She had 1,419 career points at Westwood. And I believe she's in the Dartmouth.
Yeah, she was. I think she was an Ivy League MVP one year.
Incredible. Cheryl Aaron, a huge player for you on that state championship team. Her and Ann Deacon, a two-headed monster. Cheryl, a terrific leader. She's now athletic director at Wentworth.
Leader.
Great family in Westwood too. and just, what a resource and asset you had on your team to be able to leverage her skill set and, be able to leverage that leadership on a big season that put Westwood on, forever changed Westwood girls basketball at that state championship. And I want to talk about some players you didn't have, but just shout outs. So Karen McCoy was a heck of a player. UNH stole her. Susan McLaughlin. So I don't know if you had known her, but she was in the early 90s. Great player, scored 1,200 points, played at UNH Division I. Lindsay Hien. You didn't have her as a player at Westwood, but you coached her at Harvard. And she also coached with you at Harvard. All-time leading point scorer in Westwood, 1,538. And then there was Jill Greenberg, who was more my era as well in the Lindsay Hien era. Great player and great athlete. But going into kind of the Harvard conversation, I understand you went into a professional interview and you were just say, "We'll give it a shot. It's good to network and all that." And you didn't really have any expectations.
Didn't want the job.
Did not want the job. They blew you away. What were the things that really closed you on that deal and got you to commit to coach at Harvard?
It's funny. There's this energy on the campus. So the interview I had was a day-long interview. And so it wasn't the committee that interviewed me was, I'm going to sound arrogant, but the questions they asked me were just, they were non-basketball people. So someone asked me to stand up with my suit and heels and draw a press offense on the board. So I just made one up that was stupid to see if anyone could call me out. Because I didn't think I wanted the job. Yeah. So it was interesting. That was a funny process. Then I met each person, an AD alone and all the ADs, and then the captains of the team. And as I was walking around the campus, there was just this energy that was captivating. Yeah. And I just wanted it. And I won't lie, a teeny part of it was the indoor tennis courts that I would get free tennis from my time. So and I'm like, wow. But I thought I was going to get much less money than what I was making at Westwood. But no, the salary was also a very good salary. Not good compared to men, but good compared to high school teaching.
Yeah, for sure.
It broke my heart to leave. So I took Erin Shagru with me.
Yes, that was part of the package deal.
Yeah, because she was gonna help me create the same culture that was at Westwood. Yeah, I was gonna try to create that at Harvard.
Wow, that's awesome. And I understand, similar to Westwood, when you got to Harvard, it was a bumpy start. I think 3 losing seasons, and ultimately that 4th season, similar to kind of Westwood, but Westwood was two tough seasons. And then the 21-0. Harvard was 3, and then you had an unbelievable season. And you mentioned in that season, it was. Let's see if I can find it.
It was the first Ivy title, I think.
First Ivy title, first conference champion. Yes, exactly. It was the first Ivy title. And you mentioned that it was one of your fondest accomplishments. And it was because the team wasn't the most talented, but they were the hardest working. Yeah. They outworked every single team. How special was that team? And when you were going through those initial bumpy seasons, did you see the light at the end of the tunnel, that there was something special coming down the road?
I wasn't sure, to be honest. So when I went to Harvard, it was a Thanksgiving tournament. That was the very first year Thanksgiving tournament. We won it. Yeah. So everyone thought I was the second coming. Yeah. And she's here. It's gonna change. And then we didn't win for the rest of the year. I think we were 3-25 or something like that. Yeah. And then the second season we were around, I don't know, maybe 500-ish. Yeah. And I thought we won the title in the 3rd season.
That's what. Okay, yeah, I think you're right. The 3rd season.
Yeah, so I only remember 2 rough seasons. Yes. Because I brought in my first recruiting class came in that 3rd season. Yes. And Erin was part of helping the culture, and Trish Brown from Norwood, who ended up being my assistant coach for a number of years. So it was a group of everything. Yeah. But mostly blue collar workers. Yeah. And women trying to create relational chemistry. Like, again, the focus is not, we talked about winning, but you have to work on the process of winning, which is take care of your teammates and all that. So
and a lot of stuff off the court, discussing how can I help you with this, or how can you, and talking, having leaders on the teams. When you have seniors, juniors approaching some of the freshmen and having conversations with them, building their confidence up and helping their skill set, that's so important to winning culture. You've been known for some great quotes, some funny quotes. And early in your career, it might have been year 1, year 2, you would play against some games against Ann Deacon. You played some games against Cheryl. And you were playing Holy Cross, and Holy Cross played a good game. I think Cheryl had a terrific game.
Great.
And you had a quote after the game, which is an all-timer.
I don't know it.
And it was,
okay.
It was, if basketball was a 20-minute sport, we would be a heck of a team.
I don't remember that one.
I found that, and I thought that was great, because it was showing, some humility. It was showing, patience in your system.
Yeah.
You knew, it was going in the right direction. But ultimately, you had that first Ivy League title, and you went on to win 11 Ivy League titles, which is remarkable. 6 tournament berths is remarkable. And, March 4th, 1998, a special day that, I'm sure you'll remember for the rest of your life. For those at home, Harvard was the 16 seed in the 98 NCAA Division I girls basketball playoffs. Stanford was the 1 seed. Stanford was the overall 1 seed, from what I understand, and the game was at home. And Harvard beat them, and it was an amazing game. It's also an amazing effort by your star player, Allison Feaster, who led the country in points, if I'm not mistaken.
She was a scoring champion.
She scored nearly half the points that game.
Yeah, but that wasn't unusual. She was that good.
Yeah, and when I see quotes in this game, one that really sticks out is, you were obviously happy for Harvard. Amazing win, like a win that's so huge for school and the program. But you were more happy for the Ivy League.
Yeah.
And recognizing the talent in the Ivy League, the no quit, the fight, and the hard work mentality. And that was something that I saw noteworthy. And it was actually a pretty cool quote eventually down the road from one of your colleagues, Coach Courtney Banghart. Mm-hmm. She was the Dartmouth coach. I think she's the coach now at North Carolina.
Yes.
But she describes you as, Kathy is all Ivy League. She is Ivy League basketball, and she is Harvard basketball. And she said she was almost larger than life, and I'm sure games like that, where when you watch it on TV, it's the celebrations and everything. It's a remarkable moment that will be etched in any basketball memory over time. But what a cool memory. Is that something that you relive from time to time, that win, or is there a bigger win in your opinion than that one in your career?
No, there's not really a bigger win, but it's and every year I get phone calls from the 16 seed saying, "What did you do?
Yes.
What did you do?"
Yeah.
So I'm never gonna forget it, and I'm very, very proud of that accomplishment, because the year before we played Stanford, we were matched up with UNC, and it was the all athletic team. It was the most athletic team in the entire country. Marion Jones, the fastest woman in the world, was their starting point guard. My starting point guard was, I would always say, Jess, you're deceptively quick.
Yeah.
She was slow as molasses. I just didn't want to hurt her feelings. So they just face guarded us and pressed us full court. And we couldn't, I don't think we scored a point. I think it was something, we were down by 22 at halftime.
Yeah.
And I was outside my locker room at halftime, and everyone was talking, and they were talking about they could actually win. My team believed they could win that game. I was the coach.
Yes.
That's the single game in my lifetime I didn't think we could win.
Yeah.
And I was so proud that they were having that conversation that they could win. I'm like, Kathy, don't wreck it. So I just walked in. I said 2 sentences, and I'm like, let's go. And we beat them in the second half. They didn't take their starters out. Yeah. It was an amazing show of strength.
Yes.
And that was the foundation for the Stanford game, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And it's talent doesn't win games. Talent, helps you. It helps you put a lot of points in the basket, but ultimately I think work, character, solid coaching, fundamentals are important, but teams that want it are going to find a way to get it done. Sometimes it's not the prettiest way to win.
Not pretty, no.
But wins.
Junk. I love junk.
I say I used to be a hockey coach. Yeah. Love ugly goals. I don't care if it's right there in front of the net and you just knock it in. That's just as pretty as shooting it from the red line.
That's right. I'm with you.
You mentioned John Kabat-Zinn, and he's a remarkable person. I first became aware of him probably 10 years ago. He's really influential with mindfulness meditation, and it's very beneficial for mental health, anxiety, depression. It's also beneficial for performance and being able to, be zoned in, get into a flow state, and to really execute on what you're looking to accomplish on the court or, in the conference room in front of, in business meetings and whatnot. How influential was he on your coaching style, and at what point in your career did you start implementing his principles into your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, at the start of my Harvard career, I did not know about John Kabat-Zinn while I was at Westwood, so I was instinctual.
Yes,
and I will tell this story quickly. Nancy McDermott was a riot. I think I was at a Hall of Fame dinner in the cafeteria, and she said, "Kathy, that timeout you called in the first year we were winning," she goes, "Kathy, you didn't know what you were doing." And I said, "No blank, Sherlock. You're right. I was like 1 year into coaching or 2 years into coaching, and she was the only one that had the IQ high enough.
Yeah.
So I needed John Kabat-Zinn when I was at Westwood, but that didn't happen. I took a course every Monday night in Newton at a community center. He had a 3-hour meditation course. It changed my life. It changed my coaching. It changed everything, because I believed that if I wasn't going to have the tallest, fastest players at Harvard, and I wasn't going to, then I was going to have the smartest brains. And so why don't I learn to train their brains?
Yeah.
And I think performance is about 75-80% mental anyway.
Agree. Yeah.
So that's why
Absolutely.
I read everything I could get my hands on.
And another one of your toughest battles off the court, you had cancer, and you, fought it courageously. Your team was, supporting you, was around you. How much of your own principles that you've used for your team and getting out of, the hole after a bad start in a game, or even just motivating them to fight, did you use on, for yourself when taking on that battle?
Yeah. 100% of all of those tools I used. I stayed present.
Yeah.
I did not miss a practice that year.
That's unbelievable.
I asked my oncologist. I asked my surgeon. I asked, can I have my surgery at Christmas time? Yeah. Can I have my chemotherapy on my off days? Yeah. And there were times I would go to practice, and I mean that's all I could do. I was exhausted, and sometimes I had brain fog. But I think, and I think that's another strength I have, and that's being authentic. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I'm not afraid to look silly in front of people. And so when you're going through chemotherapy, it does affect your short-term memory. And so you mess up and your team laughs at you, and you laugh with them, and it gets you through it. So, and then you act as if you didn't make that mistake, or they are not laughing at you. So
that's a great example to set. There's plenty of times you could, you're not feeling yourself, but you still showed up, and showing up is so important. Yeah. Whether it's, even in your personal life, showing up for family events, weddings, games, and all that. It's so important. What a remarkable example you set.
Thank you.
And, we mentioned that quote earlier that I had from Nancy Fabiano. It was a great excerpt in the Next article that they did covering your career over the years at Harvard and Westwood. And it really does talk about the relationships and the impact you had on your players. A great quote. It was, amid the wins, though, Delaney-Smith's most important legacy is that she showed her players how much she cared. From how she spoke to them one-on-one, how she coached the team, to how she fought for women's rights more broadly. Is that what you want your legacy to be remembered as when people think of KDS, the person and the coach? Yeah.
It's so funny. It was all the Westwood players and all my Harvard players that convinced me to write the book. Yeah. Because I stole, obviously I didn't know what I was doing. Look at my career path. I was a synchronized swimmer.
Yeah.
And I didn't teach anyone a ballet leg, for crying out loud. So, like, I had no right ending up winning awards and creating a little history here and there. I didn't have any right to do that. So it was these women that we would do Zooms. COVID allowed me to do Zooms with all the players that I coached.
Yeah.
And we would all be in tears. And I was blown away by, I mean, I knew I had an impact on them, but I didn't really understand it till we had these. Now they're all looking in the rearview mirror, and they didn't hate me anymore like they did when I coached them. So it's I think that's what life is all about. Like, it's about relationships and caring about people.
For sure.
It's not about winning.
No. And I got another quote for you, and it's another good one.
Okay.
It's from another Fabiano. It's from Linda Fabiano. And this one is more so on the impact of KDS. And she says, Kathy taught more than just basketball. For me, much of what I learned has profoundly influenced my professional career. She showed me that a good leader goes beyond simply directing a team. They empower each individual to realize their potential. Kathy had an incredible ability to identify the strengths and weaknesses of her players. Tailoring her guidance to elevate everyone's performance, she instilled in us the confidence to believe that we could overcome challenges and reach our goals both on and off the court. The lessons I learned from her about resilience, teamwork, and the power of belief have become foundational in my professional life. Whether facing tight deadlines or navigating complex projects, I carry forward her spirit of determination and confidence, always thriving to uplift those around me. Kathy's impact extends far beyond basketball court. That is her greatest gift.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so see, now the Fabianos and the McCoys are the reason I ended up going where I went, because they were just phenomenal. And I know everyone talks about Nancy because she has all the numbers.
Yes.
But Jeannie and Linda were just as instrumental.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a village. It takes the blue collar workers. It takes the player from the bench at times that is very angry being on the bench to like buy into the chemistry of the team. And we had that at Westwood.
Yeah.
Now the parents may have not drank my punch or buy in. They had lots of things to say about me. I will be honest. They were there. They were trying to undo. Yeah. And I would have to say to my athletes, like, your parents are wonderful. They love you, but they're not here every day in practice. Yeah. So they can't help you with your layup. Really, they shouldn't. They should not.
It's, and I think what makes the impact you left with them is so special because you coach them at a very important time in their lives. Yeah. High school is a very difficult time for boys and girls. Your confidence really isn't there. Something you're developed, right. And some of the most important people that help you develop your confidence are coaches. Right. And when you have goals and you don't think you're going to achieve them, and then you do, personally and team-wise, and then you exceed them, right. And then, Kathy's going to have us run this whole practice. I got through it. I survived. I feel great. Confidence is boosted. Yep. How important is that high school time frame and those athletes of boosting that confidence to get them ready for life? And would you agree that that's an important time of developing confidence in a young athlete's career?
Yes, especially women. And maybe it's changing for men and boys too, but definitely women, confidence is number one on the list. Even at Harvard, my 40 years, there were women on my team that didn't want to raise their hand in class because they're intimidated. Yeah. Men, they don't care if they have the right answer. They want to be heard. Yeah. Women need to be perfect and have the right answer. And so at the high school level, and even the junior high school level, it's so evident. So I would talk a lot about facial expressions, body language, and we would have to act as we would do this thing where you turn to the person on their right and you would give them a compliment, and then they couldn't giggle and they couldn't touch each other, and they had to so these were silly little exercises, but they were quite powerful to build confidence, to be able to communicate, to give someone a compliment, to give someone criticism. Absolutely. Women don't like to give criticism either. We did that too. And it was very entertaining, and it seemed silly, but it was powerful. That's
so important though in life is feedback. It's not always going to be positive. That's right. So to hear negative feedback and know that it's coming from a good place, but to know how to take it and to make good out of it and to work on stuff.
And don't go home and tell your parents so they
Yes.
can undo that good criticism.
Yeah, to reinforce that bad,
Oh,
thought
you're
process.
perfect. She should play you more.
There was another quote that I thought was really impactful. So I'm a twin. I'm not a triplet.
Oh.
But my twin are fraternal, so not, I guess the Fabianos were fraternal, triplets. But Nancy Fabiano mentions that you helped kind of create some independence among the sisters.
Oh.
Because when I'm growing up as a twin, and I talked about this with Coach Todd Zahurik, our lacrosse coach, his twins on that team, great athletes. And growing up, you're kind of identified as the twins. And
Yeah.
wherever you go, you're identified as the triplets. No one calls you your first name, and they could package you in there.
Oh, that's terrible.
So the confidence is a little different. You feel, I wouldn't say you feel like half a person, but your independence is not as developed as someone who, what isn't a twin. But she mentioned, the influence you had, where she really started to feel like she was being seen as an individual under your coaching.
Wow.
I'm sure you've coached a number of different twins and sisters.
Not too many, actually.
many?
No. I'm just trying to think. None.
Yeah.
They were it.
They were it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I want to keep it on Westwood because Westwood focused podcast. What are some of your favorite memories at Westwood? Of the players that I mentioned, who are some additional players that I didn't mention that were special to you?
Millions.
Yeah.
The Knees.
Yes.
Nancy and Elaine Nee played for me, and Pam. I didn't coach Pam at Westwood, but she was an assistant coach for me at Harvard for a year or two. And I have to tell you this very funny story. Claire McCoy played at Maine, and I think it was my first or second game at Harvard. The game was being played at Harvard. Claire was on the floor as a freshman. I was a new coach at Harvard, and I yelled, "Box out, Westwood." And the gym was empty. There was no one in the gym, and everybody heard. Yeah. Oh, I got tortured for that.
Getting some looks.
Yeah.
1,000-yard stares. Yeah.
But because Claire was there, and I was back in Westwood because I coached her at Westwood. So.
Dave Rice had some great things to say about you.
Oh, Dave.
He's a big fan of you.
Yeah. Who wasn't in love with Dave Rice? Am I allowed to say that on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was the one originally when I reached out to Old School Westwood and I said, who would the alumni like to see on the podcast? He was the first answer, said Kathy Delaney-Smith.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't think there was a chance we'd ever hear from you. I was like, she's in Hollywood.
No.
She's probably, in the next movie, she's going to be on CBS broadcast soon.
No. So this is a funny story. I'm a bike rider, so I was riding my bike and I got lost in Newton on my way to the hairdressers. Yeah. And there was a mailman delivering mail. And I got off my bike and I said, "Do you know where such and such a road is?" And he turned around and he screamed, "Miss Delaney!" Now, I had a helmet on and goggles, and you couldn't recognize me. And I said, "How did you know who I was?" This was like 10 years ago. "How did you know who I was?" He goes, "Your voice."
And I'd imagine it was a Westwood student, or
he was probably in one of my gym classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had mentioned earlier, one of my neighbors, had you as a student. It's you had an impact on more than just your players. There's no question about that. Obviously, Dave Rice with his feedback, and you also had a special player that played for you at Harvard that had a Westwood connection, Lindsay Hien. We talked about her earlier. The leading point scorer in Westwood school history, just over 1,500 points. How did you recruit her? Was that an easy process?
Oh, Lord and Taylor.
Yeah.
Lindsay Hien is the pinnacle. She is the top of the top. She's the best of the best. Yeah. So I believe it came down to me and Jen Rosati, who played at UConn, trendy, adorable, famous head coach at Hartford, and me. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be so hard. Because she was getting a full scholarship at Hartford, and I was saying, no, you got to pay, and this blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm not young and trendy. I'm just, whatever. Yeah. And luck would have it, Lindsay recognized that Harvard was the right place for her. And she met her husband at Harvard. She did. Yes. So she was special when I saw her play in the recruiting process. Yeah. She was more special than I knew when she came to Harvard. Yeah. She blew out her knee her first year. And so she still came to every practice. She put gardening gloves on and did ball handling drill. And I'm looking at her. She looks like an absolute idiot. And I'm like, what are you doing? I got this on YouTube. This is good for my ball handling. I'm like, oh my God, I love you. She used to carry a notebook, and she would go around to as the point guard, would go around to every player on the team and say, where do you like the ball? What kind of pass do you like?
That's awesome. Wow. That's unique too.
Yeah. She's just so special. Yeah. She then graduates and goes through the process of becoming an FBI agent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really hard to get that job. She got the job, and she was at some camp. They were teaching her how to use mace or something. I could be wrong. She'll know the accurate decision. But I called her and I said, I have a coaching opening. Would you ever be interested in it? She left the FBI and came and coached for next to nothing.
Awesome. Yeah.
And she was probably one of the most wonderful assistant coaches I've ever had in 51 years of coaching. Yeah. She's just so special.
Did you see qualities? I always like to think Westwood, there's a special DNA in our people, our residents. Yes. Did you see any qualities in her as you saw in some of your players from the 70s? Of leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. There was someone I didn't recruit who ended up going to Cornell, and I knew this was going to happen. I can't remember her name. Fabulous basketball player. She had a good career at Cornell. Yeah. I got blasted by Joe Guerin and people for why didn't you recruit her? Yeah. But I couldn't get her into Harvard. There was something that was not going to work. Yeah. And so, it just speaks volumes of the culture, the sports culture that's in Westwood. It's real.
It's real. It's there's a frenzy, and it's across multiple sports. Mm-hmm. And the history is the story is still being written. Yeah. And there was no really bumps in the story from when you started to now. The 80s, hockey really started to pick up. Hockey has a record of 41 straight years of making the state tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. So 41 years of qualifying, making the state championship, or making it to the state tournament. They've had, I believe, 5 state championships in that span. Girls field hockey really started to play awesome. They won a state championship the last couple, I think 3 years ago. Girls lacrosse been doing their thing. Boys lacrosse is really making. So it's a sports frenzy town. I do have another question in terms of Harvard. I look at Harvard athletics as true student athletes. I look at it as true amateur sports. I mean, that's the fundamentals of the NCAA is, amateur sports not getting paid. There's no
gotta go to class.
There's no funny business handshakes with the alumni and money handshakes. How proud are you of your team and playing the game the right way and really being when you look at your alumni, you have I think 4 players that have made it to professional sports, but you have so many athletes that are attorney generals, the governor of Massachusetts, all types of these amazing leadership positions.
Yeah.
How proud are you of your players of playing the right way and also where they've gone into their careers?
Yeah. I've always said that the Ivy League and Harvard in particular is the model. Yeah. The NCAA is missing the boat, NILs and all that going on. That's just it's ruining college sports. It's not going to be the same ever again. Yeah. And so like when we beat Stanford or anytime we went to the NCAA tournament or the WNIT, the jokes would fly. Did you bring your books? Did you, how did you get them out of class? I was just on and on. Or we were called the glorified Division II team. Yeah. So the jokes, we got no respect whatsoever. Yeah. So the Stanford game meant that much more because of the disrespect. Yeah. But you know what? I beat you, and you have 15 scholarships. Give me your bottom 5. Yes. Oh, so-and-so was injured or so-and-so was injured. Give me your bottom 5, and I'll beat you. Yeah. I really don't like coaches who make excuses. No. I don't, you want to know my starting center was carted off in an ambulance and almost died between my Stanford win and my Arkansas game. Arkansas went on to the Final Four. Yeah. If I had my center, we may have gone on to the Final Four. So, but I've never told that. Here I am telling the story. I don't really tell that story. Yeah. But so I love Harvard is truly the absolute true student athlete.
Absolutely.
They don't miss class. They have to go. Yeah. They're allowed to miss 5 class hours in a semester. You have to want your education and your sports.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. And like I mentioned, you won 11 Ivy League titles at Harvard. I didn't mention earlier, you were the 1981 Coach of the Year.
I was?
Yeah.
Huh.
1981 Coach of the Year. I believe it was high school. So that
I was?
Yes.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. But last question I want to ask you is, you just finished a book.
I did.
And it's an amazing book, and I'm very excited to when it becomes published and to be able to buy a copy. What can you tell us about that book? I understand you wrote it with a fellow Westwood resident,
I did.
Anne.
I did.
How special is she involved in the book? But what can we expect from that upcoming book?
Yeah. It's so interesting. The whole process of writing a book is so interesting, especially for someone who is not a writer, i.e. me. I am not a writer. And I didn't want to write the book. Yeah. And then to be convinced to write the book. Yeah. It was 3 of the most incredible years of my life because I get to talk to all my Westwood peeps a million times. We've had Westwood get-togethers, and then they tell stories that aren't accurate anymore. They tell horror stories because they've had a glass of wine or something. Yeah. But the book is called, and please don't be offended, but it's called "Get Your Head Out of Your Ass Because You're Missing Out." And the point of that is, women in particular, but maybe everybody, try to be perfect. They're on this journey to be perfect, and they're not accountable for their mistakes. They're embarrassed by the mistakes. They don't take risks because they're scared of mistakes, and you're missing out. Life is much better when you can laugh at yourself. Yeah. So all the concepts I used in my leadership style are in the book. Yeah. And it's also my memoir because I really had no right winning so much at Westwood or winning so much at Harvard because my background was not, I didn't have any background. Yeah. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. And so the book is meant to empower women, young girls and women, by telling my part of the story. And then, Westwood alumni and Harvard alumni are a who's who. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at what these women are doing. Yeah. They're incredible. Yeah. And it's the power of sports as a classroom. And so my alumni did not want my message to be lost. Yeah. So this book is to keep the message going. And I do some leadership talks. Yeah. And again, I just talk about what I did that worked for me. You can pick and choose what will work for you. Yeah. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. And what I love too about it is you are authentically yourself.
I truly am.
Including the title of your book. Yeah. And I love that message because do the things that scare you.
Yes.
Go out and do what scares you because you're going to be better. And what I've learned is, exposure therapy, is a term that's used.
Oh, I like that.
Where
I might have to steal that.
Oh yeah. It's some of the best ways to get over your fear is exposure therapy. So go do it. And what you realize is when you're so fearful, you become a little bit less fearful. Mm-hmm. And then the more times you do it, the less and less it becomes fearful to the point where you're not thinking about it before, during, or after. It's just you're there. Yeah. You're present. So I think when you break those barriers, it not only helps your confidence, but it really helps your leadership abilities because you did something that you probably were avoiding for a while, and now you did it, and you can tell the story about it.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to steal that. Hey, thanks, Morgan.
Absolutely. But I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Being a Westwood resident, I'm so proud to be from Westwood because of people like you, people like Jackie, and the athletes that really paved the way for winning culture, doing it right, playing the game the right way. Mm-hmm. Really excited about the book too.
Thank you.
And we'd love to continue to see you in Westwood. You should never pay for a coffee or a glass of wine anywhere you go in Westwood. And
yes,
I will extend the invite too. We do play-by-play games. If you ever want to do color commentary on any games in the future, you are always welcome.
Oh, that would be so. I think I'd be awful, but I think it would be so fun.
You would be fun because it would be you and I. We'd be having fun.
Oh, I'd have so much fun doing that.
I have not the knowledge that you have, so I'd be probably saying words about different things that happen in the game that make zero sense.
Yeah.
But it would be fun, I'm sure. Maybe we bring back some of the alumni as well.
Oh, that would be great. I'm like your dad, though. I'm old school. So I still say pick and roll. And then they have new names for all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, takes it to the hoop. You know, I keep it very, simple terms.
I went to one game. I went to a Medfield Westwood game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Westwood lost.
Medfield's very
I
good.
haven't been in the building since it's all been rebuilt. And so the person I was with said, "Is this the same gym you coached in?" And I said, "No, I didn't recognize the gym, but it was the same
gym. I didn't either.
Gym."
It is. Well, it's because you remember the top, like the little tile glass.
Yeah.
That was different. That's different now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, they gave it a facelift.
Yeah, but they took my name off the wall. I said my name was on the wall for a million years, and then they took it off.
Well,
I'm not hurt.
Well, I'm calling it Kathy Delaney Court anytime.
Okay, good. All right, good.
Kathy Delaney, high school for all I care.
Okay, good. Yeah, good.
But thank you again for hopping on. You're an amazing guest. You have a great, amazing story.
Thank you.
And I hope the viewers, anyone that's never heard of Kathy, you now understand her story, and really understand, how Westwood Athletics started and where it is today, and why it is the way it is. So thank you for being a guest, and really appreciate you coming on, and thanks everyone for tuning in.